Iona looked at him, and he looked back at the little mouse. Before knowing about Iona's identity, in his eyes, this was the first hamster to appear on the 99th floor. With such a particularly formal demeanor, Sejun found it strange and asked the cat, "Who is this, Theo?" Excitedly jumping straight to the point, Theo explained, "I told her that I'm a subordinate of the Great Black Dragon, but she didn't believe me, so I brought her here. See, I did a good job, didn't I?" To show that she was indeed here to meet the Great Black Dragon, Iona immediately bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Great Black Dragon. I am Iona, President of the Mage Association. Pleased to meet you." Still not understanding why the little mouse was here, fortunately, Aileen's message panel helped him understand better. It read, "The tower manager said the little mouse came to visit, but couldn't arrive on time due to the red locusts on the 67th floor. The tower manager said if she's the president of the Mage Association, she must be a high-level monster in the tower." Seeing Sejun's confused face, Eileen had to change the message. "Just listen to the whole story. That must be it." Sejun cleared his throat. "All right, Iona," unsure where to start, but finally managed. "We can't let guests from afar stand here forever. Would you like a drink first?" A moment later, Iona was invited to sit on a cushion made from green onions, facing a glass of homemade tomato juice, shimmering red and delicious. This was probably the strangest welcome Iona had ever encountered, because no matter how small she was, she always had her own seat at meetings, right? The farmer in front of her, awkwardly scratching his head, said, "Drink freely, though it's nothing special." Sejun was embarrassed. The rabbit family surrounded the table curiously looked at them, while Theo was startled to realize Queng was the same size as himself. The cat gaped. "Have you shrunk?" Sitting for a while to overcome the awkwardness, Sejun spoke first. "All right, Iona, you said you came here for what purpose?" She straightforwardly said, "I have a request for the Great Black Dragon." Guessing her intention based on what Eileen had mentioned, Sejun politely asked, "Is it about the red locusts on the 67th floor?" Hearing it was indeed an important matter, Iona jumped up from the green onion cushion and questioned, "The Great Black Dragon knows about it. Then why don't you deal with them?" How could Sejun know? He guessed based on what Eileen had tearfully mentioned earlier, something difficult that the dragon couldn't reveal. Following that lead, he hesitated, apologizing, for many different reasons. Not knowing how to explain, Theo's whiny voice interrupted, "President, I want reward soup." Kong saw the cat asking, and he called out, "Dad, I want some too." These two noisy like a bunch of preschoolers, not caring about South Sejun's whispered caution. "We have guests." Iona found it suspicious, thinking, does the Great Black Dragon really live with these whiny ones? This atmosphere is so strange. Is this really the Great Black Dragon? Moreover, what do the titles President and Dad mean? Seeing Sejun pushing the two clueless kids aside, Iona found it increasingly strange. Besides his black hair, there seemed to be nothing related to the Black Dragon at all. More like a human who had just rushed into the tower recently, she couldn't sense any power at all. This person seemed really weak. But on the other hand, Iona recognized the dragon's magical power, which no creature in the tower could approach, emitting a strong trace. These were clearly visible to her, impossible to hide. They flowed out faintly, but always from certain areas. Lifting the wooden cup that Sejun offered, Iona took a slow sip, thinking hard about what was going on, as she currently didn't understand. Suddenly, her black eyes widened in surprise, unable to hide her shock. "Oh my, what is this? I can feel a large amount of magical energy in this thick red liquid. Moreover, it tastes delicious and sweet." Seeing the guest enjoying it, the farmer was delighted. Sejun cheerfully asked, "Is it good?" "That's honey cherry tomato juice. It's made from magical cherry tomatoes grown by the rabbit farmers and honey from poisonous bees." Focusing on the liquid, Iona asked about the magical cherry tomatoes. "Can I see them?" The rabbit father eagerly brought out a large bowl containing nearly 10 cherry tomatoes, proudly showing them to Iona. With just a glance, the little mouse recognized the rabbit family, softly asking, "Are you residents from the Red Ribbon Kingdom on the 55th floor?" The rabbit father smiled and nodded. "Yes, Mr. Sejun. I mean, the Great Black Dragon here has allowed us to stay here." Curiously, Iona picked up a cherry tomato, and her system identified it as a magical cherry tomato. She was very surprised. This was an item she had never seen before. Were there any other items? Sejun immediately responded, "There's the sun sweet potato, agile carrot, and enhanced corn. Oh, it seems it's almost time to harvest peanuts too." Iona asked, "Peanuts?" It sounded like she had never heard of such a thing before. The two sat talking while the surrounding crowd got noisy. Theo lovingly patted Kwang's head after sharing a reward soup stick with him, even though it was his most treasured possession, usually never sharing with anyone, yet he gave the red bear a whole stick. Seeing the two of them being so affectionate made Sejun happy, and he praised Theo. Nearby, he saw Minotaur and the Silver Wolf tribe playing with the gray rabbits. It seemed they had known each other for a long time, with no distance between the monsters. Seeing the adorable smiles on the rabbits' faces as they played with other species, Iona suddenly understood. They are living very happy lives here. An extremely reasonable thought suddenly struck the little mouse's mind. Staring at the cherry tomato in her hand, Iona exclaimed inwardly, "So that's it! He's been taking care of the monsters who have no place to return to. And he's been researching food issues and items too. Perhaps the reason the great black dragon's energy feels weaker is because he has devoted his efforts to caring for the monsters." She pretended to cough to hide her surprise, thinking to herself how shallow she had been. She hadn't understood the sacrifice he made for the tower, forgetting about himself. She really had been too shallow, hadn't she? Sejun turned back, intending to talk seriously with Iona about the red locust problem, but she lowered her head solemnly and spoke first. "I apologize. My small self couldn't repay the great black dragon's immense kindness. To show my remorse and respect, Iona even pressed her two hands down on the wooden table, bowing sincerely to Sejun, determined to use her life to correct her mistakes. Sejun found it strange, but assumed it was just a formality and didn't pay much attention. He placed something on the table in front of Iona, making her eyes widen as she looked at it and then up at the farmer. Pointing to the hard blade green onion he had placed on the table, Sejun said, "I think this might be useful. What do you think?" It was another completely unfamiliar item, shining under the sunlight. Iona saw the system indicate this was a hard blade green onion, swearing she had never seen anything like this before, with a completely unfamiliar name. The little mouse stared at the blade onion from top to bottom. Hard blade green onion? An Eskimo story says that as long as there's a blood-stained knife, even facing a fearsome wolf, it can be easily hunted. The method is simple. Dip the knife in blood repeatedly, freeze it, and bury the blood-stained knife in the snow, waiting until the knife becomes part of the snow and the starving wolves, unaware it was human-made, would come sniffing the sweet blood. Initially, they lick it joyfully, enjoying the taste, but soon their tongues would get cut, bleeding, and their own blood starts to flow. However, in the freezing weather, the wolves, with their cut tongues, won't feel the pain. Sejun told this story with a very grave expression. So they keep licking until they slowly die. It's a story I read in a book before. Theo, sitting on the silver wolf chieftain's head, meowed in fright. "What a scary story, Elka. I'll give you fish, so don't lick knives, meow." Elka replied, "I won't do such a thing." Iona then commented, "What an interesting story. Because it will be very difficult to distinguish between normal green onions and hard blade green onions, they will surely fall into the trap. The red locusts that have tasted the green onions will seek out other green onions, and they'll rush to the hard blade green onions, devour them, but end up cutting themselves and dying." Excitedly, she continued, "Red locusts also have a habit of eating each other when their kind is injured. If that's the case, we might be able to protect the teleport point." This made a lot of sense and was very convincing, and it could be implemented immediately. Iona looked at Sejun with wide eyes full of admiration. "No wonder you're the great black dragon. How can you solve the food issues of the tower and develop items to deal with the red locusts?" Sejun laughed awkwardly at Iona's praise, unsure which part made him more embarrassed, the repeated mention of the great black dragon or the praise of his abilities. He wasn't sure, but it seemed the little mouse had misunderstood something. Returning to the previous matter, Sejun held the blade green onion in his hand, thinking that he wanted to see if his hypothesis could work. Since the blade green onions hadn't been harvested for long, if he wanted to plant them, he'd need to call in those pests to test their effectiveness. Surprisingly, Iona responded calmly, "If that's what worries you, don't be. I have a few red locusts right here." He looked at the little mouse in astonishment, wondering how she managed to keep them. Of course, Iona didn't store those fierce creatures in her sleeve. She summoned a space door linked to an endless pouch. It buzzed like a fan and allowed Iona to rummage inside for what she needed. If you thought she'd pull out a few locusts with her bare hands, you'd be wrong. Iona grabbed the handle of her magic staff and pulled it out of the endless pouch first. Its gem glowed, casting a dark beam outward, bringing forth 5 controlled red locusts. The atmosphere grew tense with just a few of them. Sejun fell back in surprise, eyes wary of the creatures, while the mother rabbit, deeply traumatized, buried her head in the father rabbit to avoid seeing the culprits that had taken over her kingdom. After a moment of hesitation, he asked, "Those writhing in that dark mist, are they red locusts? They look so rigid?" According to Iona, she had captured a few for experimentation, and now they were available for Sejun's use. But what does the great black dragon intend to do with these? Upon hearing her question, Sejun slowly got up and asked her to wait a moment. He went into the warehouse to fetch a regular green onion, planted it in a patch of soil near the table, and then planted the blade green onion in a different patch not too far away, making sure the regular green onion was closer to the locusts. Sejun's experiment involved only these 2 items. Once ready, he called Iona, asking if she could release the red locusts to test it out. Even Elka found them terrifying, standing still and not daring to move. With a swift flick of her magic staff, the magical barrier popped like a burst balloon, releasing the red locusts. At first, they were dazed, swirling in the air, but quickly reverted to their aggressive nature. The whole swarm buzzed, their sharp teeth clicking as they scanned the area. 10 eyes soon spotted the experimental green onions Sejun had planted not far away. Without a hint of restraint, they zoomed toward it as if they had been starved for years. 3 or 4 of them clustered around a single stalk, eager to eat before their comrades did. As soon as their forelegs touched the onion, their mandibles worked like saws, rapidly gnawing holes. A large green onion was devoured in less than a minute. Barely finished, they immediately sought the next target, drawn to the blade green onions reflecting the sunlight enticingly. The locusts flew straight to the blade green onions, unaware of the danger. If their legs had touched first, they might have noticed, but their jaws met the stalk first. Fatal curiosity. A sharp sound echoed as the first locust was sliced cleanly in a heartbeat. Despite seeing their comrade cut in half, the following locusts didn't hesitate. The second one met the same fate, followed by the third, with the blade green onion showing no signs of wear. Sejun, witnessing the scene, cheered, "Amazing! It worked!" The mutated green onion seemed capable of cutting through at least 50 more locusts, the scattered corpses proving its efficiency. As the farmer laughed joyously, the system unexpectedly popped up with good news. "You've achieved the outstanding farmer accomplishment by capturing pests with an item." Sejun gaped at the following lines. "You will be rewarded with a special privilege for this accomplishment. Special reward, accumulating points for capturing pests." Overwhelmed with joy and disbelief, he scratched his head. "The system recognizes my outstanding farming achievement? If I catch red locusts with an item, I can accumulate points? That's fantastic, given there are millions of locusts." Just in time, Sejun would help the tower by dealing with all of them using his newly planted green onions. All events seemed orchestrated for his benefit. Outside the tower, someone else was about to receive similar good news as Sejun. In the magnificent glass high-rise, a joyful laugh echoed. "Kim Dongshik, you truly are my student." Taejun, dressed comfortably in a tank top and shorts, lounging on the sofa in his freezing cold room, praised, "How did you manage to clear the 38th floor faster than I expected?" Seeing his master relaxing in the icy cold that required him to wear a thick parka, Dongshik humbly thanked his teacher. Taejun sat up and looked at him. "I heard that after leaving the tower, you came straight to find me?" Nodding confidently, "You sure are quick with information, master." Dongshik reached into his bag and unexpectedly pulled out a slightly strange-looking yellow-brown sweet potato for his teacher. Naturally, Taejun had no idea what it was but would soon find out. Behind Dongshik were several members of the Phoenix Guild, smiling. "Master, everyone is waiting for the legendary hunter's return. Let's go to the tower." A bright smile spread across Taejun's face. He had been waiting his whole life for the moment to return to the Black Tower. "Let's neutralize the fire curse within 5 hours."